The blue-green waters of Aquanis sparkled under twin suns as Elder Vorum pressed his translucent fingers against the communication crystal. His bioluminescent patches flickered with fear as he watched the massive dark ships descend through the atmosphere like falling shadows. The Drakari Empire had found them. For 3,000 years, the R'Lani had lived in peace beneath the waves and above the coral cities. Their civilization had mastered the art of harmony, creating technologies that worked with nature rather than against it. Their greatest achievement was not weapons or war machines, but the quantum harmonics that could heal dying worlds and biotechnology that could restore entire ecosystems. They had never needed to fight because they had never met anyone who wanted to destroy them. Until now, the Drakari ships were massive, black as the void between stars with red lights that pulsed like angry heartbeats. Each vessel was 5 times larger than the biggest R'Lani habitat, and there were hundreds of them darkening the sky above Aquanis. The reptilian warriors inside those ships had conquered 47 worlds in the past century, enslaving every species they encountered. They took what they wanted and destroyed the rest. Vorum's communications specialist, a young R'Lani named Nira, approached with trembling tentacles. "Elder, their leader is demanding our surrender. He says we have 1 day to submit or they will turn our oceans to steam." The Elder's patches dimmed with sorrow. The R'Lani had no weapons, no armies, no knowledge of warfare. Their technology was designed to create and nurture life, not destroy it. Against the Drakari's massive fleet, they were as helpless as coral polyps against a tsunami. "There must be someone in the galaxy who can help us," Vorum whispered, his voice carrying the musical tones of his species. "Someone who understands that strength should protect the weak, not destroy them." Nira activated the deep space transmitter, the most powerful communication device the R'Lani had ever built. It could reach across thousands of light years, touching every star system in a vast sphere of space. The message would be broadcast in every known language, carried by quantum waves that could penetrate the deepest regions of the galaxy. "Begin recording," Vorum said, his patches glowing with desperate hope. The transmission began with the mathematical constants that proved intelligence, followed by star charts showing Aquanis's location. Then Vorum's voice translated into electromagnetic patterns that any advanced species could decode. "To any who receive this message, we are the R'Lani of Aquanis. We are a peaceful people who have never known war. For 3 millennia, we have studied the mysteries of life and creation. We have learned to heal worlds, to restore dead ecosystems, to create technologies that work in harmony with nature rather than against it." He paused, watching through the crystal walls as more Drakari ships descended. Landing craft were already touching down on the outer islands, and smoke was beginning to rise from the settlements there. "We face annihilation by the Drakari Empire. They have come to our world not to trade or communicate, but to enslave and destroy. We have no weapons, no armies, no knowledge of warfare. Our evolution taught us to cooperate and create, not to fight and destroy. We are defenseless against their aggression." The sounds of distant explosions reached them through the water. The Drakari had begun their assault on the outer cities, testing the R'Lani's defenses and finding none. Children's voices could be heard crying in the deeper chambers of the city, their parents trying to comfort them with songs that spoke of better times. "We offer our greatest treasures to any who can help us survive. Our knowledge of quantum harmonics can heal dead worlds and restore dying suns. Our biotechnology can create new life from the dust of ancient planets. We can teach the secrets of working with nature rather than against it. These gifts we offer freely to any who will stand with us against those who would destroy us." Vorum's patches flickered brighter as he spoke the final words, pouring all his hope into the transmission. "Please, if there is mercy in the universe, if there are those who believe that strength should protect rather than destroy, aid us. We are the R'Lani of Aquanis, and we do not wish to die." End transmission. The quantum signal burst from Aquanis, like a ripple in the fabric of space itself, spreading outward at speeds that defied conventional physics. It raced past dead systems and living worlds, through the territories of 100 different species, carrying the R'Lani's desperate plea across the galaxy. Most of the species who received the message felt sympathy but could do nothing. The Tenthari were too far away. The Kristen Collective was too small. The Ethereal Consortium was too peaceful. Dozens of civilizations heard the cry for help and wished they could respond, but none had the power to stand against the Drakari Empire. The signal reached the edge of a small spiral arm, where a young species had recently developed faster than light. Communication. They called themselves humans, and they lived on a blue-green world not unlike Aquanis. Their planet teemed with life, but unlike the peaceful R'Lani, the humans had earned their place at the top of their world's food chain through violence and cunning. Dr. Amy Rodriguez was alone in the Deep Space Monitoring Station when the signal arrived. She had been tracking routine stellar phenomena when the quantum wave hit Earth's detection grid like a thunderbolt. The mathematical constants were perfect, the star charts were accurate, and the message was crystal clear. Someone was calling. For help? Amy's hands shook as she recorded the transmission and began the translation protocols. As the meaning became clear, her heart raced with excitement and fear. First contact with an alien species, and they were begging for their lives. She reached for the emergency communication link to Earth Command, knowing that this message would change everything. The R'Lani had asked for help, and whether they knew it or not, they had just contacted the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Humans didn't just fight to survive. They fought to win. The emergency session of the United Earth Council convened within hours of receiving the R'Lani transmission. Representatives from every major nation gathered in the Geneva chamber, their faces illuminated by the holographic display showing the location of Aquanis. The alien message played on repeat. The musical tones of the R'Lani language now translated into every human tongue. President Maria Santos stood at the podium, her dark eyes scanning the assembled leaders. Behind her, the massive display showed tactical analysis of the Drakari Empire's expansion pattern. Red dots marked conquered worlds, each one representing millions of enslaved beings. The pattern was clear and terrifying. The Drakari were spreading outward from their home system like a cancer, consuming everything in their path. The xenobiology teams have confirmed the authenticity of the transmission, Santos began, her voice carrying the weight of history. We are not alone in the universe, and our first contact is with a species facing genocide. Admiral Rex Thompson, head of the Terran Defense Force, stepped forward. His weathered face bore the scars of Earth's last global conflict, when humanity had finally united under the threat of nuclear extinction. The Drakari Empire has been expanding for over 3 centuries. Our deep space telescopes have detected the energy signatures of their conquest fleets. They're not just raiders or pirates. They're systematically wiping out entire civilizations. The Japanese representative, Dr. Akiko Tanaka, raised her hand. What exactly are they asking for? The translation mentioned quantum harmonics and biotechnology. These could represent advances beyond our current understanding. They're offering us knowledge that could revolutionize our science, Santos replied. But more importantly, they're asking us to choose what kind of species we want to be. Do we ignore their plea and wait for the Drakari to eventually reach Earth, or do we act now? The debate that followed revealed the fundamental nature of humanity. While other species might have calculated odds and sought diplomatic solutions, humans instinctively understood something that the peaceful R'Lani could not. Sometimes violence was the only answer to violence. The Chinese representative, General Li Wei, stood with military precision. The Drakari expansion pattern shows they'll reach our sector within 2 centuries. If we don't stop them at Aquanis, we'll face them at Earth with a much larger fleet. But we're talking about interstellar warfare, protested the Brazilian delegate. We've never fought beyond our solar system. We don't know their capabilities, their numbers, their technology. Admiral Thompson activated the tactical display, showing humanity's current military assets. We have 12 deep space-capable warships, each one built for exploration and defense. But they're crewed by humans, and humans don't lose. The Russian representative, Colonel Petrovolkov, nodded grimly. Every major conflict in human history has been won by the side that refused to accept defeat. The Drukhari have been conquering prey species for centuries. They've never faced predators. Suntus watched the faces around the table, seeing the same expression on each one. It was the look that had driven humans to climb the highest mountains, explore the deepest oceans, and reach for the stars despite every obstacle. It was the look of a species that had clawed its way to the top of Earth's food chain and wasn't about to back down from a fight. The R'Lani are offering us their greatest treasures, Santos said quietly. But they're also offering us something more valuable, the chance to be the species that stands up to bullies. The chance to prove that strength should protect the weak, not destroy them. The vote was unanimous. Fleet Commander Alex Stone received his orders while standing in the command center of the TDF Predator, humanity's most advanced warship. The vessel had been designed for deep space exploration, but its builders had learned from human history. Every exploration ship was also a weapon. Every scientific mission was also a military operation. Stone read the mission parameters with growing excitement. 43 years old, he had served in every major conflict since the African War. He had led the assault on the Mars Rebellion, commanded the fleet during the asteroid mining crisis, and earned his reputation as the most dangerous military commander in human space. "We're really doing this," he said to his second-in-command, Major Lisa Chun. "We're going to war with an alien empire to save a species we've never met." Chun checked her tactical display, showing the 12 ships of the expeditionary fleet. Each vessel was crewed by volunteers, soldiers who had requested assignment to the mission despite knowing they might never return to Earth. "The crew is ready, sir. They've been preparing for this their entire lives." Stone nodded, understanding what she meant. Every human was descended from predators who had survived by being faster, stronger, or smarter than their prey. Evolution had given them forward-facing eyes for tracking targets, endurance for long hunts, and the ability to work together in coordinated attacks. Other species had evolved to run, hide, or cooperate. Humans had evolved to fight. The fleet departed Earth. 3 days later, their fusion drives creating brief new stars as they accelerated toward the edge of the solar system. The journey to Aquanis would take 2 weeks through hyperspace. 2 weeks for the crews to prepare for a battle unlike anything in human history. As Earth shrank to a blue dot behind them, Stone reviewed the intelligence reports on the Drukhari Empire. They were larger than humans, stronger individually, and their ships were more numerous. But they had grown complacent through easy victories against species that couldn't fight back. The R'Lani had called for help, not knowing they were summoning the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The Drukhari were about to learn why humans had never been conquered by anything except other humans. Stone smiled as he watched the stars stream past the viewport. The galaxy was about to discover that Earth's apex predators were no longer confined to one small planet. The hunt was about to begin. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Aquanis system like wolves entering a hunting ground. Commander Stone stood in the bridge of the TDF Predator, watching the tactical display populate with contacts. The Drukhari Armada was massive, over 200 ships arranged in a blockade formation around the blue-green world. But Stone's attention was drawn to the planet itself, where delicate crystal structures floated above vast coral reefs like underwater flowers reaching toward the light. "Beautiful," whispered Lieutenant Tom Baker, the communications officer. "Hard to believe someone wants to destroy it." Stone's expression hardened as he watched Drukhari landing craft descending toward the planet's surface. Smoke was already rising from several of the outer settlements. Not someone, something, predators that prey on the peaceful. The R'Lani response came within minutes of the human fleet's arrival. Their communication was a mixture of desperate hope and barely contained terror. The musical tones of their language carried across space, translated by Earth's computers into words that made Stone's jaw clench with anger. "Unknown vessels, this is Elder Vorum of the R'Lani Council. Are you the ones who answered our call for help? Please, we are running out of time. The Drukhari have begun their assault on our outer cities. Our people are dying." Stone activated the communication array, his voice carrying the calm authority of a man who had never lost a battle. Elder Vorum, this is Commander Stone of the Terran Defense Force. We received your transmission. We're here to help. The silence that followed stretched for several seconds. When Vorum's voice returned, it carried a note of confusion that would have been amusing under different circumstances. Terran Defense Force? Are you a military organization? We called for help, not warriors. Major Chun looked up from her tactical station, raising an eyebrow. Should we tell him that on Earth those are the same thing? Stone keyed the communication again. Elder Vorum, we need to meet in person to coordinate our response. Can you provide us with safe passage to your primary city? Of course, but please. Understand, we are not fighters. We have no weapons, no military knowledge, we don't know how to wage war. That's why we're here, Stone replied. We do. The journey to the Relani capital city of Lumina took the human shuttle through underwater canyons that defied description. Bioluminescent coral gardens stretched for kilometers, their lights creating patterns that seemed to pulse with alien music. Schools of creatures that looked like living jewels swam alongside the shuttle, their forms shifting between transparency and brilliant color. Lieutenant Baker stared out the viewport in wonder. It's like flying through a living cathedral. How could anyone want to destroy this? Because they can, Stone answered grimly. Because they've never met anyone who could stop them. The city itself was a marvel of organic architecture. Crystal spires grew from the ocean floor like gigantic flowers, their surfaces gleaming with inner light. Walkways of living coral connected. The structures, while gardens of sea anemones provided both beauty and function. It was a civilization that had learned to work with nature rather than against it. Elder Vorum waited for them in the city's central chamber, a vast space filled with the soft glow of bioluminescent panels. He was tall and graceful, his translucent skin revealing the gentle circulation of fluids that served as his blood. His bioluminescent patches flickered in patterns that the humans' translators interpreted as deep anxiety, but it was Vorum's reaction to the humans that revealed the true magnitude of the cultural divide. As Stone and his team entered the chamber, the Elder's patches dimmed with what could only be described as instinctive fear. His large guards focused on their faces with the wariness of a prey animal encountering something it didn't understand. You are the ones who answered our call, Vorum said, his voice barely above a whisper, but you are not what we expected. Stone moved slowly, recognizing the signs of a species that had evolved to avoid predators rather than become them. What did you expect, Elder? Scientists, perhaps, diplomats, beings who would negotiate with the Drakari, find a peaceful solution. Vorum's patches flickered faster as he studied Stone's scarred face, the way the human's eyes tracked movement. The controlled violence that seemed to radiate from him like heat. You are warriors, we are humans, Stone replied simply. On our world, the two are often the same thing. The cultural shock was evident in every aspect of the meeting. The Relani had prepared a feast of delicate foods that complemented their herbivorous diet. The humans politely accepted the offerings but requested protein supplements from their shuttle. The Relani spoke of harmony and cooperation. The humans discussed tactics and weapon deployments. Dr. Nira, Vorum's communication specialist, tentatively approached Major Chun. Forgive my curiosity, but your species evolved as predators, didn't you? Your eyes face forward for tracking prey. Your teeth are designed for tearing meat. Your bodies are built for pursuit and combat. Chun nodded matter-of-factly. We're omnivores, but yes, we evolved as hunters. Every human is descended from predators who survived by being better at killing than their prey was at escaping. The young Relani's patches pulsed with fascination and fear. And you chose to come here to protect us rather than conquer us? That's what predators do, Chun explained. We protect our territory and our pack. You called for help, so you're packed now. And the military briefing that followed was unlike anything in Relani history. Stone's team displayed holographic battle plans, discussed ship formations, and analyzed the Drakari fleet's weaknesses with clinical precision. The R'hllani listened in stunned silence as the humans casually discussed strategies that involved ramming attacks, targeted assassinations, and psychological warfare. "You're planning to hunt them," Vorum said finally, his patches flickering with dawning understanding. "Not just fight them, but hunt them like prey?" Stone's smile was cold and predatory. "Elder, the Drukhari have been conquering peaceful species. For centuries, they've never faced hunters before. They have no idea what's coming." Lieutenant Baker pulled up the tactical display showing the Drukhari fleet formation. "They're arranged in a standard blockade pattern designed to prevent escape rather than repel attack. They're not expecting anyone to come hunting them." The meeting concluded with the humans returning to their ships and the R'hllani retreating to their deepest shelters. As the shuttle climbed through the crystalline waters toward the surface, Stone reflected on the encounter. The R'hllani had called for help, but they had summoned something far more dangerous than they had imagined. "Do you think they understand what they've done?" Baker asked. Stone watched the Drukhari fleet through the viewport, already planning their destruction. "They asked for help, and they got the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They're about to learn that sometimes the only way to stop a predator is to send a bigger predator." The hunt was about to begin, and the Drukhari had no idea they were about to become prey. Warlord Krex stood in the command center of his flagship, the Bloodfang, watching the tactical display with amusement. The massive Drukhari was nearly 3 meters tall, his scaled hide bearing the scars of 100 battles. His species had evolved on a harsh world where only the strongest survived, and they had carried that philosophy to the stars. For 3 centuries, the Drukhari Empire had swept across the galaxy, enslaving every species they encountered. "Unknown vessels have entered the system," reported his tactical officer, a younger Drukhari named Voss. 12 ships, much smaller than our cruisers. They're approaching from the outer asteroid belt. Krex's forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air in the way his species did when considering prey. 12 ships against our armada of 200? What manner of fools are these?" The bridge erupted in the harsh laughter of the Drukhari warriors. They had conquered 47 worlds, and every species they had encountered had either fled or surrendered when faced with their overwhelming numbers. The few that had tried to fight had been crushed so quickly that the battles barely qualified as entertainment. "Perhaps they're pirates," suggested Commander Thane, Krex's second-in-command. "Some species develop a taste for violence when they're desperate enough." "Or perhaps they're simply stupid," Krex replied, his yellow eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Either way, they'll provide some amusement before we finish with the fish people below." The Drukhari had been occupying Aquanis for 3 days, systematically destroying the outer settlements while the R'hllani cowered in their underwater cities. It was the same pattern they had followed on dozens of worlds. Demonstrate their power, break the spirit of the population, then move in for the harvest of slaves and resources. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the unknown fleet," Voss reported. "They're demanding our immediate withdrawal from the system." The laughter on the bridge grew louder. Krex activated the communication array, his voice carrying the arrogant confidence of a species that had never known defeat. "I am Warlord Krex of the Drukhari Empire. You will identify yourselves and explain why you wish to die today." The response came in a voice that was calm, controlled, and utterly without fear. "This is Commander Stone of the Terran Defense Force. You are committing genocide against a peaceful species. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Krex's eyes widened with delight. "Terran Defense Force? Another new species to add to our collection. Tell me, Commander Stone, how many of your people live on your homeworld? We'll need to know how many ships to send after we finish with you." "You're welcome to try," Stone replied. "But first you'll have to deal with us." The communication cut off, leaving the Drukhari bridge in stunned silence. In 3 centuries of conquest, no species had ever spoken to them with such casual disregard for their power. The Drukhari were apex predators, the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They had evolved to hunt and kill, and they had never met their match. "Prepare the fleet for battle," Krex commanded, his voice carrying the excitement of a hunter who had just found worthy prey. full battle formation. We'll crush these humans quickly and add their ship technology to our arsenal. The Drakari fleet moved with the precision of a military machine that had conquered half the galaxy. 200 warships arranged themselves in a massive formation designed to overwhelm any opponent through sheer firepower. It was a tactic that had never failed them, but as the human fleet approached, something strange happened. Instead of forming their own battle line, the 12 human ships scattered like a pack of hunting animals. They disappeared into the asteroid field that ringed the system, using the rocky debris as cover. "They're running," Thane observed with disappointment. Another species of cowards. But Krex was studying the tactical display with growing unease. His species had evolved as predators, and something about the human movement pattern triggered ancient instincts. "No," he said slowly, "they're not running, they're hunting." The first attack came from above, where the human ship TDF Wolverine had positioned itself behind a massive asteroid. The vessel dropped from concealment like a striking snake, its weapons targeting the Drakari command ship with surgical precision. The attack wasn't meant to destroy the vessel, but to cripple its communications and sensors. "Return fire?" Krex roared. But the human ship had already vanished back into the asteroid field. The second attack came from the flank, where 2 human vessels emerged from behind a cluster of rocks. They struck at the Drakari formation's edge, targeting the ships responsible for maintaining the fleet's organization. Again, the attacks were precise, focused on specific systems rather than attempting to destroy the larger vessels. "They're trying to break our formation," Voss reported, his voice tight with confusion. "But why?" "They're outnumbered 20 to 1. Krex was beginning to understand, and the realization filled him with both admiration and growing fear. "They're not trying to fight our fleet, they're trying to hunt us. They want us scattered, disorganized, fighting their battle instead of ours." The third attack confirmed his analysis. The human ships struck from multiple directions simultaneously, their weapons targeting the Drakari vessels responsible for fleet coordination. Within minutes, the carefully maintained formation began to dissolve as individual ships lost communication with their commanders. "All ships, maintain formation," Krex broadcast, but his words were lost in the chaos of battle. The human attacks had been perfectly coordinated to disrupt the Drakari command structure. Then the real hunt began. The human ships moved through the asteroid field like predators through tall grass, appearing and disappearing with deadly efficiency. They targeted isolated Drakari vessels, using the rocky debris to break up the larger fleet into smaller, more manageable groups. Each attack was swift and precise, designed to cripple rather than destroy. "They're hurting us," Thane said with dawning horror, "like prey animals." Krex watched his mighty fleet being systematically dismantled by 12 much smaller ships. The humans fought like nothing he had ever encountered. They didn't rely on superior numbers or firepower. They used cunning, coordination, and an intimate understanding of predator tactics that the Drakari had never faced. "Sir, the Nightblade and Skullcrusher have lost main power," Voss reported. "The humans are targeting our weapon systems and engines, leaving the ships helpless but not destroyed." "Why don't they finish them off?" Krex demanded. The answer came from Commander Stone's voice over the communication array. "Because we're not like you, Krex. We don't kill for sport. Surrender now, and your crews will live." For the first time in his life, Warlord Krex felt fear. Real, primal fear that reached back to his species' earliest memories of being hunted. The humans weren't just fighting them. They were demonstrating their superiority as predators, showing the Drakari what it felt like to be prey. "Never!" Krex roared, his pride overriding his survival instincts. "All remaining ships, attack formation. We'll ram them if necessary." But the Drakari fleet was already broken, its ships scattered and disorganized. The humans had turned the asteroid field into a maze where superior numbers meant nothing. In the space between the rocks, it was predator against predator, and the humans had been perfecting the art of war for millennia. The battle continued for 6 more hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The galaxy's greatest conquerors had finally met their match, and they were learning what it meant to be hunted by something deadlier than themselves. The silence that followed the end of the Battle of Aquanis was unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. For 3 days, the human fleet had systematically dismantled the Drakari armada, turning the mighty conquerors into helpless prey. Now, as the smoke cleared from the asteroid field, the survivors on both sides tried to comprehend what had just happened. Warlord Krex knelt in the detention bay of the TDF Predator, his massive frame barely fitting in the human-sized cell. The proud warrior who had conquered 47 worlds was now a prisoner, his fleet destroyed, his empire's expansion halted by 12 ships from a species he had never heard of until 3 days ago. Commander Stone stood outside the cell, studying the defeated Drakari with clinical interest. The human showed no signs of the exhaustion that should have followed such an intense battle. His eyes held the calm satisfaction of a predator who had successfully defended his territory. "Your species has ruled through fear for 3 centuries," Stone said, his voice carrying no hatred or anger, only cold fact. "You've enslaved 47 worlds because you were the strongest predators in the galaxy. But strength alone isn't enough when you face someone who understands war better than you do." Krex raised his scaled head, his yellow eyes still blazing with defiance. "You may have won this battle, human, but the Empire is vast. Other fleets will come. Other warlords will avenge this defeat." Stone's smile was sharp and predatory. "Let them come. Word of what happened here will spread across the galaxy within weeks. Every species you've conquered will learn that the Drakari Empire can be defeated. Every peaceful civilization will know that there are those who will stand against bullies." The truth of those words was already spreading through the galaxy's communication networks. The R'Lani had broadcast the entire battle, sending the footage to every star system within range. The images of human ships moving like hunting wolves through the asteroid field, systematically destroying the galaxy's most feared fleet, were being transmitted from world to world on Centauri Prime, the enslaved. Centaurians watched in amazement as their Drakari overseers received urgent messages from their homeworld. The proud reptilian warriors suddenly looked nervous, glancing at the skies as if expecting human ships to appear at any moment. On Vega 7, the crystalline collective emerged from their hiding places for the first time in 50 years. The geometric beings had been driven underground by Drakari conquest, but now they began to hope that their world might be free again, even on the Drakari homeworld itself. The news of the defeat sent shockwaves through the military hierarchy. For the first time in their history, the Drakari had encountered a species that could outhunt them. Elder Vorum stood in the ruins of one of Aquanis's outer settlements, watching human engineers work alongside R'Lani scientists to rebuild what the Drakari had destroyed. The cooperation between the two species was remarkable, given their fundamental differences. The humans approached problems with aggressive efficiency, while the R'Lani offered gentle wisdom and organic solutions. "They're not what we expected," Nira observed, watching a human soldier help rescue survivors from a collapsed coral building. "We called for help, thinking we might attract diplomats or scientists. Instead, we summoned warriors." "Warriors who chose to protect rather than conquer," Vorum replied, his bioluminescent patches glowing with wonder. "Perhaps that's what the galaxy needed." The formal ceremony took place in the Great Chamber of Lumina, with representatives from dozens of species in attendance. Word of the human victory had spread quickly, and delegations from across the galaxy had come to witness the moment. When the balance of power shifted, Commander Stone stood before the assembled crowd, uncomfortable with the attention but understanding its necessity. Behind him, the holographic display showed the current state of the galaxy, red zones marking Drakari-controlled systems, blue zones showing human patrol routes, and green zones representing the growing alliance of species that had pledged to stand together against aggression. "We didn't come here to conquer," Stone began, his words being translated into dozens of languages. "We came because someone asked for help. The R'Lani called out across the galaxy, and we answered. That's what the strong should do, protect those who cannot protect themselves. The Rilani delegation stood and began to sing, their voices creating harmonies that seemed to resonate through the very walls of the chamber. Other species joined in with their own expressions of gratitude, creating a symphony of alien voices that spoke of hope and unity. But the most important moment came when the Drakari delegation approached the podium. They were not the proud conquerors who had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, but a humbled species learning to live in a universe where they were no longer the apex predators. "We have wronged many species," their spokesman said, his voice heavy with shame. "We believe that strength gave us the right to dominate others. The humans have shown us that true strength protects the weak rather than preying upon them." The Terran Protection Protocol was established 6 months later, with Earth as the hub of a growing network of allied species. Any peaceful civilization, threatened by aggressive expansion, could call upon the human fleet for protection. The galaxy's bullies suddenly found themselves facing a terrible choice: adapt to a universe where their victims had protectors, or face extinction. The Drakari Empire chose to adapt. Within a year, they had released most of their slave worlds and begun the long process of learning to coexist rather than dominate. Some Drakari warlords refused to accept the new order and continued their aggressive expansion, but they found themselves hunted by human ships that appeared like ghosts in the void. Admiral Thompson, now commanding the expanded Terran Defense Force, established patrol routes that covered the major trade lanes and communication hubs. Human ships became a common sight in the galaxy, their presence a reminder that the age of unchallenged aggression was over. The changes weren't just military. The alliance between humans and Rilani had produced remarkable advances in technology and science. Human engineering combined with Rilani biotechnology created new forms of terraforming that could restore dead worlds. The quantum harmonics that the Rilani had offered in exchange for protection became the foundation for faster-than-light communication networks that connected peaceful species across the galaxy. But perhaps the most important change was philosophical. The galaxy had learned that predators didn't always hunt the weak. Sometimes they hunted other predators, and sometimes they chose to protect rather than destroy. 5 years after the Battle of Aquanis, Elder Vorum stood in the restored city of Lumina, watching human children play alongside young Rilani in the coral gardens. The sight would have been impossible to imagine before first contact, but now it seemed as natural as the tide. Commander Stone, now promoted to Admiral, visited Aquanis regularly to coordinate the protection fleet's activities. His presence no longer caused the instinctive fear it once had among the Rilani. They had learned that humanity's predatory nature could be channeled toward protection rather than destruction. "Do you ever regret sending that message?" Stone asked during one of his visits, standing with Vorum on the observation deck overlooking the thriving city. The Elder's patches flickered with what humans had learned to recognize as amusement. "We asked for help, and the universe sent us. Its most dangerous species. But those dangerous beings chose to be our guardians rather than our conquerors. How could we regret that?" The galaxy had indeed changed. Trade flourished under human protection, with merchant vessels traveling routes that had been too dangerous for centuries. Scientific collaboration between species produced discoveries that none could have achieved alone. Art and culture spread freely, no longer suppressed by the fear of conquest. The Drakari had found their place in this new order as well. Many had joined the protection fleets, their warrior instincts redirected toward defending the innocent rather than preying upon them. They served alongside humans with a mutual respect born of understanding what it meant to be apex predators who chose a different path. In the depths of space, human patrol ships continued their vigilant watch. They were no longer just the defenders of Earth, but the guardians of a galaxy that had learned an important truth. Sometimes the strongest species was not the one that conquered the most worlds, but the one that chose to protect them. The Rilani's desperate call for help had been answered, not by diplomats or scientists, but by warriors who understood that true strength meant standing between the predator and the prey. Humanity had found its purpose among the stars, and the galaxy was safer for it.